23-year-old female staying with my friend, who's also a female and 23, for a couple of weeks in a town I grew up in. She works at a restaurant without giving away too much details about the location. It's a plaza with a river nearby, a movie theater, restaurants, and boutiques. We enter through the parking garage, which has 3 stories, both elevators and stairs. This is important. She had a 6-hour shift, so I decided to do some shopping, listen to music, and walk around before eating at the restaurant my friend works at. I was sitting at the bar on the corner alone listening to music. A bigger man approached me. He had a security guard beanie on that was incredibly dirty and tattered up. He was muttering, and his eyes were barely open. What I got from his muttering was, are you? I like your... Is anyone sitting? But keeping in mind, it was incredibly muttered. I'm just guessing what he was trying to say. All of this was said while he was switching back and forth between looking in my eyes and staring at my chest. I told him multiple times I couldn't understand what he was saying. After a bit of back and forth, I put my headphones back around my neck, and he left me alone. I told my friend about what had happened immediately. I tried to shake it off, hoping it was an isolated incident. If this is where the story ended, I wouldn't be writing this, unfortunately. About an hour later or so, I see someone approach the bar to my left, out of the corner of my eye. I felt their eyes on me. I didn't look, but somehow I knew it was him. My heart started beating really fast. I texted my friend and told her I felt really sketched out. I wanted to believe that I was misreading things, and I was just letting anxiety get the best of me, but I couldn't shake the feeling. 30 minutes or so later, she gets off. As we walked towards the parking garage stairs to get to our car, I saw him sitting on a bench waiting for me. The benches aren't super close to the elevators. They're closer to the restaurant, if anything. The second I spot him, my blood ran cold. He saw us walking towards the stairs to the parking garage and started running towards us. I was face to face with him by the time we got to the top of the stairs. We booked it back to the restaurant and used the employee elevator to get to the car. An employee escorted us to the car as well. The employee told us there was a lot of cases of homeless people who walk around the restaurants, so I presumed that he was homeless, and just walking in and out of the restaurant until he saw me. I'm incredibly thankful I trusted my gut, and that I saw him. I don't know what would have happened to us if I didn't see him first, but I don't want to find out. To the stranger, let's not meet again. This happened in college. At the time I was 18 and a sophomore. I had just recently gotten out of a 6-year relationship and was starting to get into the dating scene. I downloaded Tinder and got to swiping. Some background. I don't want to talk about someone that went to my university because thinking about running into someone I was talking to out in the wild really made me anxious. I ended up matching with this guy. We'll call him Marco. Marco was 20 and a junior at the neighboring university, about 15 minutes up the road. He had 1 selfie, and other 2 pictures he had were group photos. They seemed older, and I didn't think much of it. We started chatting, and very quickly he asked for my number. I would say it's a little too early for that, but he kept insisting, and I eventually gave in. About 2 days of talking, he started to ask for pictures, so I would send selfies. He would ask for more provocative pictures, and I kept shutting it down, telling him I wasn't interested in that, and I just wanted to see where things went. Marco would say how he couldn't wait to meet me so he could kiss me, and every time he would say that, I would just change the subject. We planned a date after a week of talking. He said that he knew a good Indian restaurant over by his school, and then we could walk in the downtown area after. I agree, as it would be in a public place. The day came for the date, and again I started to get a weird feeling. I told my roommate what we had planned, and she said she would keep her phone on her if I needed her. A few hours before the date, I got cold feet and told him my car wouldn't start, and asked to reschedule. He offered to pick me up, and I kept telling him no, that we should just reschedule, but he kept insisting. It started to make me feel guilty. He would say how he was looking forward to it for the past couple days, and I was hurting his feelings, and that he'd be more than willing to get me, but I'm not giving him the chance. Well, I caved. It was the worst decision ever. Despite the feeling I was having, I told him the information to get me to the lot outside my dorm. Right when I got into the car, I realized that this was probably going to be a horrible date. Right away, he tried to hold my hand and asked to give me a kiss. I denied and he started to drive off. On the way to our destination, he drops that we are no longer going to the restaurant. We're going to go to his apartment instead. He's going to cook me dinner. At that point, my heart sank and I started to have a small panic attack. I texted my roommate letting her know. She was worried and said that she would come get me if I needed. Again, not listening to my gut, I tell her that it's fine, and I'll let her know once we get to his place. When I say this apartment was disgusting, I mean it was covered in trash, dirty clothes, and dishes. He said that he wanted to go to his room because his roommate was home and didn't like when he had company. His bedroom was even worse than the common area. There was only a single path to his bed, and the bathroom, it was so dirty. We sat in his bed and he turned on a movie. I can't remember the movie, all I remember is the stench of his room, and him starting to make advances on me. Marco started rubbing my back and shoulders. I kept scooting away, trying to put some distance between us, but it didn't work. After a few minutes, he started to force himself on me. He started to kiss me so hard and holding onto my head that I couldn't move it. I didn't know how, but he eventually was on top of me, and forcing his entire body weight on me. I can't move an inch. I'm paralyzed by fear. He doesn't get much further than that because as soon as he's on me, he's just as quickly off and running to his restroom. He's throwing up. I've never been so thankful for vomit. I don't know why he got sick. When he came out, he apologized for getting sick, that it happens all the time. He says he needs to take me home, trembling. I just get up and straighten myself and follow him out. I still don't know if he's going to try anything else, and I didn't want to aggravate him or say anything wrong, so I tried to act like nothing was wrong to get home safely. And that happens. He pulls up to my building, tells me that he wants to make it up to me, and I just nod and say goodnight and get out of the car. Once inside, I block him, report him on Tinder, and delete the app. I also took extra measures to block him on any social media I could. I didn't tell anyone at first what happened. I was embarrassed because I put myself in that position. I started getting calls from random numbers, and when I answered, there wouldn't be anyone on the other line. I would block the number and a new one would be calling. It got to the point that my phone was ringing constantly. After the phone calls were random Facebook and Instagram messages from different accounts. They would say things like, "Why are you ignoring me? Why aren't you talking to me?" And then they started getting more aggressive and threatening. My roommate started getting messages and I had to tell her everything. She told me I needed to report him, or at least tell my parents. I didn't do either because I was scared. That is until I started receiving random pictures of myself. I'd be walking on campus, in the dining hall, in class, and then I got one of me in my dorm room. It was taken through my window, which was on the second floor. However, the main street has a hill that has the same level as my window. That's what my room faced, and my bedroom was in the front of that window. I told my roommate, and she made me tell our RA. The RA was very concerned and ended up calling the campus police. I made a report with them, the messages continued, and so did the photos, until one day about a week later, he approached me on campus. He grabbed me by the arm and tried to take me to his car. I started to yell, and luckily there was a campus police nearby. He was arrested and banned from the campus, and I didn't hear from him again. It was quite a few years ago, so some of my memories aren't as vivid as I try to block out that part from the past. Not many people know that this happened to me. To this day, my family doesn't know. The only people that know are my college roommates, the RA, and the campus police, my therapist, and as of the other night, my fiance. I want to spread awareness of the dangers of online dating. Always trust your gut. If something doesn't seem right, it probably isn't. Not all online dating has consequences. I met my now fiance a few years later on Facebook dating, but your gut is usually right, and sometimes it's crucial to listen to. With that being said, Marco, let's not meet again. Right off the bat, I'd like to say that this incident is one of a few that has stuck with me. Although this took place in January of the previous year, it definitely keeps me awake at night. It seems surreal to me that so many weird things have happened to people on the daily basis, and I never imagined them happening to me either. Anyways, I was staying abroad due to college, and there wasn't a single thing that had irked me or creeped me out. I lived in a relatively populated area, and there are a lot of young women in my apartment, and even older women. So you could say I felt pretty safe in my own home. Walking the streets was also a nice safe since there was always people around. There were apartments, parks, houses, those full-time 7-Elevens and small cafes. I'm pretty sure there was a small motel too. Regardless, it creates a pretty decent image of the area. Although university taught me lessons in English for all the foreign students, I still wanted to learn the language to respect and experience the culture. It was fun and I made quite a few friends in those classes. Well, one day I was walking into a convenience store from the class. I remember being quiet and dazed and tired. It was around 8 p.m. The class ended a while back, but since I had a once-in-a-lifetime leisure time, I decided to explore the place. I knew my way around and I was feeling pretty confident about my routes and all. As time passed, I walked and reached this giant road with some empty plots to the right. Don't get me wrong, it was a residential area, and I could even hear noise from a couple of houses. Now, this is where it gets a little weird. There's a bunch of houses, but as you keep walking towards the city and all the hustle and bustle, there's this entire secluded area of just road and streetlights. The convenience store was about 4 kilometers away approximately. I was feeling uncomfortable and very nervous too, because of the previous incident I had had, so I decided to stop and look around. There was nothing, but I decided to keep on jogging further. While looking side to side and back a little too, not even 30 seconds passed and I bumped into someone. I felt the feeling of dread rush over me. My hair stood up. My palms started shaking, and I didn't even lift my head to see who it was. I apologized like crazy, simultaneously backing away and getting ready to fucking bolt out of there, like it was a damn Olympics or something. The person came in front of me, started walking towards me in little steps and started moving in this weird swaying motion. It was almost like a cartoon. While swaying, the person just like, "What the fuck? What are you okay?" With this arrogant tone. I say person because I generally couldn't tell if this person was a man or a woman. Their face was covered by a mask and they wore a large hoodie with sweatpants. The voice was sort of muffled, but it didn't sound masculine or feminine. The person started swearing and started doing that weird swing motion while reaching in their pants pocket. I saw a glimpse of something shiny, and my instincts that were so conveniently dried out kicked in. I took the chance and fled the damn place. I went to the store and told the clerk and they called the police, who found 2 fucking shoes on the same spot. Along with the shoes was a mask apparently. They never found out who it was, what they wanted, or how they saw them lurking around the empty plots. There were no bushes or lights. Either way, I'm glad I'm safe. This story pops up in the back of my mind from time to time. I've only told it to a few people, but I definitely feel like it deserves its place here. It's for sure one of the scariest moments I've ever had as a child. Back when I was around 10 years old, my mom finally decided that it was time for her to start taking her driver's license. When she began taking lessons, she was struggling a lot. For that reason, my dad decided that he wanted to do some practice with her, besides the official driving lessons with her instructor, just to make sure that she'd pass the upcoming test first try. My little brother and I were attending swimming lessons at this nearby university at the time. Behind a forested area near the university lays this huge student parking lot, surrounded by trees, which turned out to be basically an empty every weekend. My dad saw the opportunity to take my mom here to drive around for a bit, and brought my little brother and I with, since we were too young to stay home alone. We brought a football with us. When we arrived at the parking lot a lot later in the evening, my parents began their practice. My little brother and I quickly got bored, though, and asked if we can go over to this little grass field on the side of the parking lot to play some football. My parents let us since they'd be able to keep their eye on us while they're driving around. After playing for some time, my parents ended up driving around in the other end of the parking lot. They're approximately 300 to 400 meters away from my brother and I. Suddenly, this Toyota pulls up in the parking lot. We were playing almost right at the exit/entrance, and the car turns around and stops on my right side, and the vehicle's facing the exit. The driver rolls down his window and presents himself as Thomas. He looks friendly, and was good looking for a young, I guess to be around 30. This is where things get weird. On the passenger seat was a woman covering her face with a newspaper. All I could see was long blonde hair. And in the back seat was a baby seat that sat in the car. Thomas immediately states that he's from the police, and that we'd have to get in the car immediately. As he has a talk with us, my brother actually took 2 steps towards the vehicle, but I stuck my arm in front of his chest as I was sensing something was off. The woman was still covering her face at this point and not saying a word. Thomas then raised his voice and told us again to get in the car, or else he'd have to come and get us. My brother and I froze out of fear. Suddenly the woman put down the newspaper, showing her face, and told us in the most calm, mothering voice to just listen to the man. The woman looked young, pretty, and like a woman who wouldn't hurt a fly. At this moment I began screaming as loud as I could. What we hadn't seen at that point was that my dad was already running as fast as he could towards us. He was coming from behind the vehicle, so we didn't see it. My parents didn't have time to drive us since they were down the road, and the parking lot was twisted all the way. When my dad heard my scream, he started yelling as loud as he could. "Hey, who the fuck are you? Get the fuck away from my children!" As soon as Thomas heard my dad and realized my brother and I weren't alone, he threw his car into gear and took off as fast as he could. He most definitely looked like a person who shot himself when he saw my dad. My dad was furious and told my brother and I to hurry to get back in the car. He didn't even think about calling the police at that point. He wanted to beat that guy up himself. That resulted in us driving around for the next hour trying to find him before my dad cooled down and decided he should probably just call the police. We never found out who those people were, but this episode taught me to never judge a book by its cover. People can be most friendly looking people in the world and still wish evil upon you, or the ones you love. I'm not sure what those people would have done to us, and I'm sure about one thing though, they definitely weren't the police. I used to be a surveillance investigator for insurance claims, work injury stuff, to see if people who claimed to have been hurt at work and were collecting free money were actually not injured. I did this full time for about 10 years. Doing a new case every few days for 10 years, you see a lot of weird shit. For example, one time I saw a drug dealer in a downtown city, literally riding horseback. You see scary stuff too, obviously in a bad neighborhood, etc. The scariest encounter went down about 20 years ago. This was a case in a somewhat rural area, which were always the toughest. You get there at 6 a.m., see the cars were in the vicinity, and run plates to see if they were the person that matched. Then mostly you watch for the registered vehicle to depart if you found one. This place had one car in the driveway with no plates, which actually wasn't quite unusual. You were also provided an age, height, weight of the person, and a rare case a picture, so I knew that this guy was in his mid-30s, average height and weight. First day it turned out he had left before I got there. Protocol is, if you can't confirm that they're home by 10 a.m., 4 hours on site. You literally need to knock on the door to confirm if they're home. You usually pretend to be a UPS deliverer in a costume from a dollar store, and an item in an envelope with a clipboard. Surprisingly, that works. Anyways, no one was home. The second day came back at 5 a.m., and lo and behold, a second vehicle was there. A truck, also with no plates. The dude came out around 5:30 a.m. and left. I followed him, but he was immediately wise and knew that he was being followed, which usually means they're up to no good, i.e., working while collecting insurance disability money, aka insurance fraud. I let him go while trying to be discreet about it. I came back the third day in another car, which you also do sometimes, and this time he left again early, and I successfully followed him to a farm in a neighboring rural hills. In short, I busted his ass on video doing heavy-duty farm work for several hours. He eventually caught on, realized he was being watched. I took off my park position and thought there was no way he could suddenly get off of his tractor, run to his truck and get to me, as there's no driveways etc. between us and also a creek. Somehow he was then and utterly on my ass in his truck in some scary-ass rolled mountain roads. I was scared shitless and kept driving, and somehow I made it to the freeway. I had literally been lost in the mountains. On the freeway he followed me for miles and I couldn't shake him. He'd pull beside me at times and flex his arms and gesture pull over. Dude was actually pretty scary looking, and I had evidence on him that would cost him in more ways than one. I literally called 911, reported a drunk driver endangering me, but was surprisingly told the officers were in between shifts and couldn't help. There was an easy pass bridge about 20 miles up, if I got that far, and at first I thought I could lose him there if he didn't have an easy pass, but then realized again he had no plates, so it wouldn't matter. Anyways, after many miles, I finally was able to shake him, but he remained pretty close behind. I exited the freeway and found a gas station. A cop was there, and I reported the guy and his truck. The cop made a call, and I didn't see the guy pull up. Shortly thereafter, I gassed up my car and left, drove home, and submitted my report. I'm sure his free insurance money ended at the very least. The scariest part actually is that I was worried that the guy had my license plate and can run it somehow, as I was able to do for work, and locate where I live. I began to research him online. Sometime in that line of work, you learn the potential insurance fraud of the person you're following is their least of their criminal endeavors. Well, I learned that the guy was a hardcore convicted felon who had been in federal prison and was a gang member and a hard drug user and dealer. I was scared, but nothing happened over the next few years, and I eventually forgot about it. About 5 years later on, I had a case in the same rural area again, and thought about this guy. I wanted to Google him to see what the police blotters revealed about him in the last few years. I Googled him again and discovered that he was actually dead. I learned that a couple years prior, he had taken his girlfriend hostage with a gun, killed someone who tried to help her, and then was killed himself by another person who actually saved her. Don't need to worry about meeting him again. Hey friends, thanks for watching the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this short little narration, and if you could make me a very happy boy and hit that subscribe button, comment what you'd like to see next, and drop a like, because, you know, that helps with engagement. Anyways, that's about it, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. See you guys later.